This is Naija Unfiltered on Symphony TV. My name is Olawale Oluwade, and my guest today is Honorable Afam Ogene, the caucus leader of the NDC faction in the House of Reps. Also is the representing Ogbaru Federal Constituency of Anambra State. Also committee chairman on renewable energy. Honorable, nice having you on the show once again.
Thank you, Wale. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Let's get right into our conversation. Just yesterday, the House of Representatives, I think the Minority Caucus, of which the NDC is a part of, issued a very strong reprimand of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that he should either fix the worsening insecurity crisis or resign. And many are asking from yesterday, how come you guys suddenly woke up from slumber? What happened?
Well, good day, Nigerians and viewers from all over the world. Happy to be here again. Beginning with your last question, if you see it as a wake-up call, or both from us, the Minority Caucus, from our slumber, we also expect our president to also do the same and wake up on the right side of his bed to govern. For the Minority Caucus, you would know that even at the outset of the 10th Assembly, we didn't get it right because the Minority Caucus, as led by Right Honorable Kingsley Chinda, who is a known acolyte and associate of the FCT minister, could not have been an opposition to the majority APC government and APC majority in the House, given where he stands. It's like asking Minister Wike to lead an opposition against President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It's practically impossible. But we thought that as parliamentarians, that on the floor, he would at least lead the opposition parliamentarians to hold government to account. But as it turned out, we are proved right at the end of the day. He has finally defected to the APC, where he took the governorship ticket for his state, Rivers. The two other members of that bench, my good friend Dr. Ali JC from Gombe, moved from being minority whip. He was of the PDP extraction, but he has ended up joining the same APC, same as Right Honorable Ali Madaki from Kano, who was deputy minority leader. He is now also of the APC. Leaving, of course, Right Honorable George Ozodinobi, who came into the House on the platform of the Labour Party and is with us in the Nigeria Democratic Congress. So he was standing there alone. So upon last Thursday, we decided that since there were vacancies, we needed to fill them. And for the first time in the life of the current 10th Assembly, House of Representatives, we got together and overwhelmingly endorsed Right Honorable Fred Abedi as minority leader, Right Honorable Manson Soro as minority whip, and Right Honorable Abdul Dasuki as deputy minority leader. So with that true, you could not have expected anything better than a rejuvenated Minority Caucus that will now live up to its name and play the role for which it is constitutionally assigned.
Okay, two quick questions on this. In the process of electing the new leadership of the Minority Caucus in the House of Reps, initial reports was that Honorable Ugochinyere was elected as the leader.
For the signatures, yes, you know that in every struggle there is always a forerunner. Honorable Ikenga Ugochinyere, to our mind, is the hero of this change in minority leadership. We, the members with cognate experience, felt that we should not bring the institution down. We should go, walk through the structures and of the House of Representatives to get to where we are today. But as a young man who is imbued with democratic favors and have fought many battles, he thought that we were rather too slow, and so moved on. And the members supported him because they were in need of leadership. And where there is any leadership vacuum, anybody could fill it in. And Ikenga Ugochinyere, put himself forward, and members overwhelmingly endorsed him. But of course, as the different gates that lead up to, somebody being pronounced, he was told that the rule book says you have to have cognate experience to be a principal officer. So that was only what stopped Ikenga. And then he willingly, of course, endorsed the new leadership, because don't forget, before the inauguration of the 10th Assembly, Right Honorable Fred Abedi had led the minority caucuses, the entire 7 or 8 minority parties that produce membership of the 10th Assembly. And he led us brilliantly. But because he too is of the minority, the majority didn't want him to act in that state. But better late than never.
My question is, do we now expect a robust engagement of the minority caucus in the House of Reps? Because don't forget, earlier on, maybe the third or so House of Reps, if my memory serves me right, under Gali Nahaba speakership and Chibudo Momuche, they did move an impeachment motion against President Obasanjo, a retired military general. And you cannot compare situation now to under Obasanjo. So if President Obasanjo was threatened with impeachment, notice, how much more? I'm not saying you guys should impeach, but I'm just saying, do we expect a robust, activist role of the House of Reps?
Whether you expect, the country expects a robust opposition. Of course, if the morning tells the day, then you should know that we are in a different era altogether. Yesterday made it, today actually makes it 1 week that this new minority leadership was enthroned and announced on the floor of Parliament. And only yesterday, I had the honor of personally introducing them to members of the House Press Corps. And thereafter, our leader, Honorable Fred Abedi, addressed the nation through the House Press Corps, where we spoke on diverse issues, insecurity, the gloom in the economy, even though we didn't dwell so much about that, the kidnappings, and then the politicking, the judicial somersaults, and all of that. And when you talk about impeachment, we are not there yet. We gave timelines. Impeachment only comes when you are given certain timelines to do certain things, and upon the expiration of that timeline, you are unable to do it. It's a constitutional issue. It's there in the Constitution, and I don't think that the framers of our Constitution put it there for the fun of it.
Let's switch gears. What's your reaction as a lawmaker to Monday, June 15th? Some say it's a dark day for democracy, but I don't know whether I would go that far in describing what Mr. Judge Peter Lofu did when, against all known laws, conventions, constitution, electoral acts, whatever, just went rogue. Not my word, now the word of even the appeal court. And ordered INEC to deregister 5 political parties, ADC, Zenith Labour Party, Accord, AC, and one other party. when the appeal court in May this year had said, stay action on this your, exercise until, adjourned substantive hearing till October. This guy showed up on Monday, summoned the lawyers, and handed down that curious verdict. What's your response to it?
Well, in the part of the country I come from, it is said that when absurdity lasts more than a year, it becomes the norm. Mr. Justice Peter Lofu has had his name mentioned in highly contentious political issues. And some of us who are on the outside have had to wonder whether he's the only one on the bench at the Federal High Court, Lagos, that he has to be in the midst of controversial political cases. Anyone can look it up and see from whether it be the Labour Party, ADC, and all whatnot, he's there in the mix in controversial matters. And his decisions, while I may not be in a position to fault it, but we are all learned. Forget that lawyers said they are the only learned people. At least we can read and write and understand. And the primary and elementary thing in law is that when you go upstairs, the lower court takes action, especially in a situation like the one instant case in review, where the appeal court had put hearing on the matter for October 26, I think, only for Justice Lofu to now come and deliver his so-called judgment, which he even sent to the parties via WhatsApp. So when the witch cries in the night and the baby dies in the morning, then there must be something untoward that has happened. Why the rush? Why the haste? But that should also let us realize that when the opposition speaks, they are not just crying for where there is none. We have always insisted and pointed out several shenanigans that indicate that our dear president, is keen on being coronated for his second tenure. Elsewhere in the world and even in Nigeria, I know that incumbents gladly submit their report cards, as a template to ask for a second tenure. But here we are, 33 governors, even those who are not of the APC, are sympathetic to the administration. Close to 95% of senators. Same thing, more than 2/3 of House of Representative members. And then all the institutions of state are practically under your command. Still, what the citizens ask for, a fair chance of deciding who leads them, is being denied them. The last time I was here, I told you that all the hoopla in Labour Party, ADC, was about Mr. Peter Obi. And I know that ever since Mr. Peter Obi anchored in NDC, I do not hear of Nofiu Bala with the same speed with which they were going at the time. They're only being caught in the quagmire of the general matter, instituted by persons who ordinarily would be described as meddlesome interlopers, and incorporated whatever of former legislators. I was also a former legislator, and I'm not a member of that body. But more interestingly, the driving force and alter ego of that association, Honorable Raphael Ibokwe, is an aide to Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, Chief of Staff to Mr. President. So you see that the administration, as represented by the current executive, are not keen on even standing election. They want everybody taken out of the way and for Mr. President to be coronated. But Nigeria is a complex country. We are not a banana republic. And I can assure you that it will not happen. So why thanking the appeal court for restating his position, his earlier position, and describing Justice Peter Lofu in unsavory terms. If I were the one, I think I don't know where I'd put my face as a judge. But I think that they need to go beyond that. It is time for the National Judicial Council to actually look at some of these instances. Why would the case be lying before an appeal court, which had even made a pronouncement, and then a high court judge, goes 360 degrees against the set standards by the appeal court? I don't think that we should encourage judicial rascality and judicial somersaults.
Honorable, let me, because I'm a bit puzzled. Not a bit, I'm seriously puzzled. What would make a judge, you and I are of the same generation, what would make the judges you and I grew up, when we were growing up, secondary school students, university undergraduate, even graduates, and then we started working, the judges we knew were next only to God in reverence, in awe, almost worshipped. What has happened? How did we get to this level? That is one. Then the curious dimension of the Attorney General of the Federation, who was a defendant initially, suddenly became, can you disentangle this? What's...
Well, yes, you talked about our growing up years, and in secondary school, I know I read a small pamphlet, The Incorrectible Judge. And at the time, too, for me, as a journalist, I looked upon judges as being next to God. For people who have the powers of life and death imbued in their hands and in their tongues and pronouncements, we couldn't have fathomed that a day will come when we would have political judges, as we do have now. Judges ought not to be seen as non-corrupt. They were regarded as incorrigible. So, meaning that you couldn't even dare broach the topic of corruption. But I think that politics has happened to both the bar and the bench. Only yesterday, right there in my office in the National Assembly, on live television, we saw Minister Wike inaugurating about 10 houses or 11 for judges. And these were roles played by civil servants to provide them the basic necessities of their office. And we already have a decentralized system that every arm of government ought to take care of their persons. They are all on first-line charge. If the National Assembly is on first-line charge, the legislature, per se, is on first-line charge. We don't expect the Minister of FCT to buy our stationaries. Ditto, the judiciary. Why couldn't the judiciary award their own contracts? They have accounting officers. They have civil servants working within the system. Why would politically exposed persons be the ones to play these roles? We never had such happening 10, 20, 30 years down the line. And so it is said that good manners, bad character corrupts good manners. And when you begin to fuse politics with the job of the judiciary, then whatever we get is almost anathema to what the rational being would expect to happen. But I guess it is what it is.
Lateef Fagbemi, Attorney General.
Yes. Lateef Fagbemi, as Minister of Justice and Attorney General, is supposed to be Attorney General for the Federation. So when you see an Attorney General begin to represent an interest in a matter, he is supposed to represent the state. So why would you now go and team up with persons who have no direct bearing with what was at stake. If we were to deregister political parties, let's even look at it on face value. By the time the APC was cobbled together, they came from different political parties. They had elected representatives. So why would an ADC, for instance, that has come in with elected representatives, both in state assemblies, House of Representatives, and the Senate, and then you go to take a law that is there in the Constitution to wake it up to try to deregister them, when currently, are you saying that those members who are now of ADC are no longer elected? That's what they even forgot to think about. They have elected persons within their ranks, and you can get elected from whichever way. And if we even extend the argument further, only during the last electoral cycle, at least the SDP produced 2 persons, I know from Kogi. Yes. So why would you say, whereas the law talks about even producing a councillor, and then you have 2 House of Representatives members, you complain that they ought to be deregistered. Even the APP of Ikenga Ugo Chinyere had an elected state assembly person in Jigawa State, I think. And if you pick all the parties, they all have fulfilled those aspects of the Constitution. Has also had people elected before now. The Constitution did not say in a particular electoral cycle, but in their haste, to take everybody out of the way for an easy January 2027, they are bound to make mistakes. So the jury is out on the Attorney General. It is for him to fulfill his mandate or betray it. But I think that right now he's currently betraying his mandate.
In the National Assembly, I want us to talk about before we leave the House, the National Assembly. Senator Adam Oshiomhole was given an interview on a podcast in the course of the past few days, and was talking about some decisions being arrived at by, some members are not present, but they forged their signatures to arrive at, Is that possible that, I talked about this Gochiere issue, yes, that signatures were appended, even allegations of money. Do you know any of this?
Well, barely a week ago, no, I think that on the same Sunday, 14th of June, the same former Governor Adam Oshiomhole had also, in responding on the podcast with Shenwo Kimbaloye, did say that himself and Mr. Peter Obi were governors at the same time, and that his security record was better than that of Mr. Obi.
Can you false that?
Anambra
was engulfed with all kinds of security crises.
No. By 100 miles, Peter Obi was several light years ahead of Adam Oshiomhole. First, he got his facts all mixed up. He said it was under Mr. Peter Obi that the Bakassi boys were running riots in Anambra. That was capital false. The Bakassi boys came in from Abia State to help in the security situation under former Governor Dr. Chinwoke Mbadnuju. And even after the 4-year tenure of Chinwoke Mbadnuju, there was a 3-year hiatus of the administration led by Dr. Chris Ngige before Mr. Peter Obi in 2006. And by the time Chris Ngige was governor, the Bakassi boys issue, was off the slate. So he got it wrong on that score. Then Mr. Peter Obi, he talks about his security records. He also said that it was during the tenure of immediate past Governor Obiano that the demolition of houses as deterrence for kidnapping offenses was started. False. It was started by Mr. Peter Obi. I'm glad that I've put out a statement on that and he hasn't responded. But let me even extend it. The current talk about state police, for which the National Assembly, the House of Representatives, and the Senate did pass last Thursday, June 11, 2026, was started by Mr. Peter Obi. How? In the 177 communities in Anambra State, Mr. Peter Obi provided HELOC security vehicles for every single community. He equipped them with weapons, established vigilantes registered with the police and the government, was paying these vigilantes, drove away criminals, including the dreaded one, Evans, had to run away from Anambra to Lagos. All these...
Evans, the kidnapper, was originally based in...
Yes. It was because of these actions that he took flight, and several others like him. We didn't have these issues. Today, how many years after, the Nigerian state is now going to community policing, which Mr. Peter Obi pioneered in this republic. On the flip side, what was happening in Edo, nearby Edo State? In 2013, thereabouts, even Governor Adams' principal private secretary, your principal private secretary is one of the closest persons, 44-year-old Olaito, was murdered in front of his wife and children. As chief security officer, I don't know what Governor Adams did about it. Rather, he was more notorious for demolishing the houses of political opponents, engaging in brickbats with a traditional institution. The Onoje of Uromi quickly comes to mind, and removing the ceiling, the roofing of the State House of Assembly because he thought they were going to impeach you. Mr. Peter Obi will never descend to that level of street brawl. He enthroned civility in Anambra State, such that, you know that per square meter, Anambra has more billionaires than any state in Nigeria. But these billionaires that were lords unto themselves before the coming of Peter Obi, with mere civility, Mr. Peter Obi made Anambra home for all, a place for everybody, to act within the law. Before Peter Obi, I don't want to mention names, but Anambra was notorious politically. But during the 8-year reign of Mr. Peter Obi, you can hardly count to any politically associated death. But you asked about register and the Senate.
How motions are passed, how decisions are taken, is it bribery, forgeries?
No. When people cry foul over nothing, Senator Adam Oshiomhole, eats his words like candies. You make an allegation today, the next day you are made to eat your words. But I am not surprised. In modern times, I don't know how many people bear the name Adam. When you call Adam, the mind goes back to the Garden of Eden. Maybe he's still living in that garden. But I dare say that, your reputation goes ahead of you. Here is a man who, upon the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly, in July, just 1 month after, he did make an allegation and called departing members of the Ninth Assembly that they were all criminals and thieves, that they had looted their offices. 2 days after, Senator Adeola Olamilekon, Senate House Committee Chair on Appropriation, citing a breach of his privilege because he was also of that assembly, raised the matter on the floor of the Senate. And guess what? Senator Adam Oshiomhole had to apologize. Even in the recent instance, where he clearly stated that 3 members, that he knows of 3 members who didn't sign the ethics committee report to suspend Senator Natasha Uduaghan, even naming one of them as Ireti Kingibe. On one side, that means that whatever you discuss with your colleague, whatever you discuss with Senator Adams, will never stay with him. But we also have seen Senator Ireti come to deny that. And even Senator Adams himself coming out to say that that was not what he was quoted for something he said on camera. So I don't know where to... And 2, the NNPC incident. He also called them thieves. So I don't know whether because of his trade union background, once you put a microphone before him, he goes off tangent. But I'm not bothered because all of Nigerians know that he lacks emotional intelligence. How do I mean? This is a man as governor who told a widow who had knelt before him to plead that her seized goods be released. What came out of him? Go and die.
Honorable Senator is not here to defend himself, so let's
invite him.
Let's leave Senator Adams alone. Now, your party held NDC. You just completed your primaries, but there has been a lot of pushbacks. You know, hue and cries everywhere, allegations of bribery, extortion, all sorts. Can you speak? First, let me ask you: did you get your ticket?
Well, luckily nobody ran against me.
Oh, okay.
I ran unopposed.
Unopposed. Really?
Yes, in the party.
Because most of the hue and cry on the NDC platform is actually from the southeast. So nobody ran against you. You ran unopposed.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. But then, did you pay a bribe to the party?
If you are running unopposed, why would you need to pay a bribe to anyone?
Yeah, but
to manufacture an opponent.
No,
but let me speak generally on the issue as a caucus leader of the NDC in the House of Representatives. I think that the worry should be, why is it that for every position under the NDC, you had 5, 10, 15, 20 aspirants going for those positions? And then there were other political parties that were looking for persons. Even the ruling APC. Worst case scenario, I don't know of any constituency where they had as much as 10, let me be generous, 10 aspirants. But we have instances where we have 23, 20 running for one office. And when you are in that race, you should know that it is one person, one, that will be put forward by the party. And now, for a new platform, yes, I'm aware of voluntary donations to the party. And as leaders, we must make contributions to the growth of our party. But in spite of all this, even me, who nobody ran against, still had to go to the field. I will send you the videos as soon as I leave here. Still had to go to the field to get affirmed by my constituents that they agree with my candidacy for the position of House of Representatives in 2027. And so when you now go to the field with that large retinue of aspirants, and you know politicians, everybody wants to be the sole, it's just one ticket. And so they will deploy different means, including giving money to certain people that they think can help them influence the decision of their candidacy. But if it doesn't go right, you come out to cry. We are all in this game. You put yourself forward as an aspirant, you bought an expression of interest form. Even where you are the best, the party still reserves the right, to either put you forward as its candidate or not.
the founder, Sakidie Kinge, says, nobody will know who is winner or who is loser until a list is sent to INEC. And I'm worried because when primaries are conducted in the locality, a winner is announced, and then the names is sent to the headquarters. Am I wrong?
Look, you didn't contest that primaries. Yes. Those who contested and won know themselves.
But they don't know. That's the reason for the crisis.
Those
they don't know. No, they're in limbo.
No, those who are, crying, who are...
Honorable Agbonai.
Agbonyima. Yes, I know him.
He's everywhere talking.
Who ran for Senate.
Yes, he's everywhere talking.
You should also try to find out the trajectory. We also know that there are people being planted by other political parties to come and take. I didn't say so, but you should look at the trajectory. Where is it coming from? So if you try to get a ticket under, say, APC, and you didn't, and 5 days' time, you run to a platform like NDC, at least a little common sense should tell you that there could have been 1 or 2 people in NDC that we are going for that position. And so if you don't get it, maybe they suspect you that you're a mole. I'm not saying for anybody, I'm speaking in general terms, or for whatever reasons, or they see a better candidate in someone else. Of course, you can't beat a child and ask the child not to cry. You can have some of these hues. But you talked about Senator Victor. Now, let me shock you. A lot of the new aspirants didn't quite understand how the primaries would go. We are the makers of the current Electoral Act. Victor Ume is a sitting senator, so he knows that it's not an all-comers affair. It is the number of registered voters in that constituency as at the time the register was moved to INEC. Now, coming from the outside, many of them thought that it had to do with as many members that you could mobilize in the constituency. Be it a House of States constituency, federal constituency, or Senate. There is a certain number. In my own instance, you know that this registration took place and registers were moved. So if you registered out of that window before the register was moved, fine, you can vote. But if you registered afterwards, you cannot. In my instance, an opponent in state assembly election had mobilized up to 700 people. 2 days to that time, nobody knew he was running. And so he thought it was as many people as he could mobilize. But for that state constituency, the registered members of NDC was just 325. And then he lines up 500 people and counts them and says he has won. Has he won? When the total number is 325, which he didn't bother to find out. So we had pockets of this. I've seen videos where members or aspirants put trucks, different vehicles, and brought people from even outside the constituency to come and vote. It wasn't an all-comers affair. It was a direct primaries for registered members of the party as at the time the register was taken to INEC. So, but like I said, you can't lose an election and go home quietly in Nigeria.
Some have even accused the founder. And in any case, let me ask you, where is the NWC of the NDC? Because the only person we've been seeing in the media is the founder. Because he's been accused of dictatorial tendencies. Everybody goes to his house to sit down and wait for him. Honorable, what's going on with the NDC? Is it really a political party or an SPP?
No, one of my great dislikes in Nigerian politics is setting different rules for different persons. I was around at the time the APC was formed. And I know that the APC had a presidential candidate who later became president. Even at the time he was candidate, there was a national leader of the party. At the time the presidential candidate transmuted to being president, there still was a national leader. And a whole lot of intrigues in the party were decided in small circles. But because the focus is on NDC, that is why you are seeing all of this. Take, for instance, yesterday, when the party held a meeting to talk about signing an indemnity, I wasn't there. The national leader was there, the national chairman was there, the national secretary was there, and the national legal advisor was the one who read that out. But Nigerians will not see these officials. Even the national secretary was on Politics Today on channels just last night to speak to these issues. But Nigerians will not regard their interventions because the national leader is somebody who has been on the scene for over 20 years. Two-term House of Reps member, two-term governor, now two-term senator. So you need that guardian spirit to lead the party. But don't forget that the national chairman was also a senator. So there are things that are within the ambit of the national chairman. In the Southeast, for instance, we have what is called state leaders. And these are principally made up of former governors. Are you saying the national chairman is dictating to them? They bring after their primaries, they bring their list. The national leader only intervenes where there are issues. For instance, I made a case for a first right of refusal for my colleagues. At the time, we were about 17, and being a parliamentarian, he said our demand was not out of place, but that we should go back to our constituencies to put foot and boot on ground. I told you that even me, who ran unopposed, still went back to my constituency to hold primaries because it is in keeping with the law. It is not. You can only do a consensus where all the aspirants sign on to it. And so even my colleagues who had persons running against them and they couldn't do consensus had to go to the field.
You referenced a signing ceremony that there should be an indemnity and then deposed on affidavit, that if you win on the platform of the NDC, you will not decamp. If you decamp, you forfeit. It's already a constitutional provision. Honorable. So why is the NDC assuming another role of the... I don't understand. Can you speak to clarify this?
First and foremost, like I said, the national legal advisor was the one who read that out. Now the national leader, in making further clarifications, but you took the one of the national leader. And like I explained, it is because of his status. You know that personality makes the news. You know that. I support it.
Why?
I support it because coming from the experience we had in the Labour Party, we started with 35 members of the House of Representatives. It was unprecedented for any new political platform to have that number. But even before inauguration, party discipline was not enforced. And so we had members who, against our collective agreement how to vote in the leadership struggle, went and entered into bed with the APC. And from there, negotiated certain privileges for themselves as against the party position. Well, we know what the outcome is today. At the end of the day...
Will this signing preclude that?
No, at the end of the day, you asked me why I support it. I'm giving my own reason. At the end of the day, we lost more than 20 members to defections. And they defected because they didn't see the party as part of what brought them to office. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, the NDC tries to put in certain roadblocks. And that you put a roadblock does not mean that it can be beaten. But you should at least have in mind that there is a roadblock there. So as you approach it, you slow down. If that is the only benefit, it is something. Now you ask that it's against the constitutional provision. I would also answer with a rhetorical question. When you appear in court, both the plaintiff and the defendant, as you enter the witness box, you swear that everything you are going to say will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But you and I know that there is only one truth. At the end of the day, that case will favor one person. What happens to the other man who, in spite of having sworn to the Bible, Quran, affirmation, and the case didn't go his way? Nobody charges him for lying. So by the same extrapolation, if we have signed to this, in good conscience, even if you beat the roadblock and defect, you can be said to be a man or woman without honor. If that is the only thing it does, it serves to keep political players to stay in one place and build their parties, especially people in parliament.
What's a curious dimension also emerged in the running of in the relationship between the founder and the presidential candidates, Mr. Peter Obi and his running mate, Okonkwo. Some sort of tension, maybe rivalry is a bit too strong, but tensions, to the point where the founder came out to say, the way Obidients and the Peter Obi are carrying on like they did the NDC a favor. They didn't do NDC a favor. He himself could have been presidential candidate. He's qualified more than anybody. I don't know how Sakidie Dickson arrived that he's qualified to present more than anybody in Nigeria. I don't know how. Is there any rivalry? Do you see this marriage working out eventually?
First and foremost, he's very qualified, just like you sitting here,
Of course,
just like me.
But he said he's more than qualified.
Yes, he's more. I just gave you his resume. If you have been in the House of Representatives, you've been governor, you've been senator, what other qualification do you need?
Sakidie Kinge more qualified than Okonkwo.
There is nothing like more qualified. You can only be more qualified by the votes of the people.
Do you see this relationship?
No, perfect relationship. And when you talk, he wasn't speaking to the presidential candidate. And you know that the Obidients are an organic group of people who have love and liking for Mr. Peter Obi, wherever he goes. Yep. So he was only alerting them to the fact that they don't need to rock the boat. I don't think that there are issues between Mr. Peter Obi and the national leader. Of course, you get to hear some of these things raised up in the media. At one point, they said even the vice presidential candidate, distinguished Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, was considering dumping the ticket. I am close to him. I know it never happened, and it won't happen.
Okay, let's hope so. You referenced the Obidients. The founder was also, Sakidie Kinge was also speaking to the fact that when they come like that,
Mr. Peter Obi is not the founder of the Obidients.
No. I mean, Sakidie Kinge, founder of the NDC, okay, was making reference to the fact that when they came, he expects that he will not tolerate, not his exact words, but more or less what he was saying, that he wouldn't tolerate a pseudo body, a distinct body, a parallel body, that they should come and subsume themselves into the NDC, which is normal. But the Obidients, of course, said no, this and that. So there has been brickbats. Aisha Isufu speaking, more or less abusing the founder.
We have traveled this road before. Okay. And even me sitting here, I just returned from my constituency 2 days ago. But before I returned, one of the acts I did was to name a DG in charge of support groups and inter-party affairs. I named somebody DG. You can't take away the role of support groups in a political environment such as ours. And for some Obidients, They don't need to belong to any political platform. They have stated that their preference is Mr. Peter Obi. And why do they prefer him? They think that he, amongst all of the people jostling for the presidency, that he has a lot more to offer. And so if the platform is even a birthday party, that they will join in actualizing that goal using that platform. That doesn't make them, members of political party. On the flip side, you would want every supporter of your party to come within the fold. Even at my own level, we have that. Some people prefer to work with me and not work for the state assembly candidate. For me, I would say if you are supporting me, let's all come into one platform. But these are adults you are talking to, and you can't direct what each individual will do.
Great. Let's talk about your party's candidate, Mr. Peter Obi. I noticed you have great love for him. He's been everywhere recently, was in Washington, spoke, and in that fora in Washington, it was a field, was addressing some people gathered on a field. He said quite a number of things. One of them was that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu did not really do anything bad or wrong. He was only insulting people. And people insult him, Mr. Peter Obi too, so what's the big deal that he would release Mr. Nnamdi Kanu? Do you support that? Do you agree with him?
In answer to one of your questions, I did say that one of my great regrets in Nigeria is having different laws for different persons. I know that you know the name Asari Dokubo. Yes. He not only insults people, he displays automatic rifles, not just personally, with an army of youths. I am not certain that the Nigerian state has called him to account. That is under a different scenario. Okay. That was during the Niger Delta struggle. I'm talking about peacetime Nigeria. Sunday Igboho had clearly stated that he was going to form an Oduduwa Republic. He said with his mouth, Nnamdi Kanu talks with his mouth. He has never even been seen with a walking stick.
Or he incited people, or did he not?
What these other fellows are doing, what more incitement could that be? Even bringing it to Abuja during the presidential court cases. He came to Abuja with his boys.
Which one?
Asari Dokubo. And nothing happened. And there are pockets of ethnic warlords. No. The issue is the courts, they took him to court. The courts have decided he has a right to appeal, which I'm sure he's exercising. But on a general scale, what I think Mr. Peter Obi is saying, that why not discounting the court processes? We must treat our citizens on equal footing. You cannot have headsmen, terrorists, kill people, not incitement. If you talk about incitement, they do much more than that they will impose Sharia. What kind of incitement is more than that? And then the few that the state is lucky to capture, by some curious magic, they are suddenly given uniforms and said they have been reintegrated. People who have openly killed and are not denying, you reintegrate them into society to go and continue their malfeasance one way or the other. And then a man who uses his voice to only say, treat us better. And you think that all you have is piece of the graveyard if you encourage that.
More than three votes. Let me ask you another thing, Mr. Peter Obi. I saw him on another podcast where they would ask him, what would you do about agriculture? Rufa was saying in podcast, what would you do about agriculture? He would say, no. What would you do about power? He would say, no, don't worry about how. When I get into office, we'll do it. Don't worry, when I get into office, we'll do it. Is that how you govern? You know, we gave this presidency of Nigeria to a man that everybody hyped up as the messiah that will come and fix insecurity when it was as Jonathan left it almost like maybe 10-20%. That messiah that would solve insecurity with mere body language came. Do you know that man now, his home state now is overrun. Somebody sat here, a professor, who told me almost 60% of Katsina State is under the control of bandits and terrorists 2 days ago here. So we don't want anybody coming to office overhyped and telling us, don't worry, when I get there, don't ask me how, when I get there. Is Mr. Peter Obi truly the messiah Nigeria is looking?
You know, the man you talk about, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. No, let me even, Muhammad Buhari has had his time, and God rest his soul. Let me talk about the current president. He did tell us that if we don't have constant electricity, don't vote for him when he comes a second time. He is not on record as having told us how he will arrive.
He never appeared before the media, and that's why I'm asking this question.
No. First and foremost, you have not seen the P2B manifesto for 2027.
He saw it.
No, when we release it when campaigns begin. You have not seen it. It is in that document that you will see the how. Because you release it now, and tomorrow another party will copycat it, same way. And you, the journalist, will be in a hurry to attribute it to the other man. So he's only a foolish politician that will come and tell you how he intends to get to where he's going. He has a how. And I gave you one of the hows. Now, what is our greatest problem? Insecurity. Yes. And I told you how he dealt with insecurity.
Some of you guys that followed Mr. Peter Obi to NDC have alleged, come out public to say he has thrown them under the bus. That once he got the ticket for himself, and Rabbi Okonkwo, he just left it.
I'd like to know who and who.
Names everywhere.
I'm sure that the day Mr. Peter Obi was entering the NDC, I was there. I only saw him and Rabbi Musa Kwankwaso. So everybody entered on their own accord. I didn't sign any document with Mr. Peter Obi. He's my leader. He has always been. In my first tenure, 2011 to 2015, I came under Abga whilst he was governor. At some point, I left. He's not one to tie you down. At some point, I left. I was part of the people who began the APC on the floor of the House.
Let's round up with this, Honorable.
So he hasn't thrown anybody under the bus.
So we have Peter Obi and Kwankwaso, NDC. Yes. We have Atiku Abubakar, now Amechi, ADC. And
their good friend, Kenneth Okonkwo, is out of the equation.
Was he expected to be in the equation before?
No, not about being in the equation. He is now nowhere.
How do you know that?
He said so. He tweeted.
No, leave Kenneth Okonkwo out of this.
So I was wondering where that leaves him and his Igbo quest.
No, leave Kenneth Okonkwo out of this conversation, please. I don't want it to be any personal. You guys are brothers.
I'm friends. So I don't know why you want to reinvent the wheel. You know that in 2022, when Mr. Peter Obi left the PDP and went to Labour Party, the same Adam Oshiomhole was infamously known to have said that there were only 4 men tweeting from a room. But in your heart of hearts, in the minds of Nigerians, Mr. Peter Obi lost legally the presidency of Nigeria, but he won the hearts of Nigerians.
Have you realized that unwittingly or wittingly, let me borrow your lovely turn of phrase, all the 90% of the candidates are from the south of Nigeria, and only one man is standing there like an Iroko tree in the north, Atiku Abubakar. And some even say that is the reason why this attempt to deregister his platform. When southern candidates are going to share their votes, Peter Obi, of course, has the southeast on lockdown. Bola Tinubu will do well southwest. And people are even saying Peter Obi will take some states from, especially Lagos, like he did in 2023. You have Donald Duke, whom you've written off, in the South. Adebayo is there from Ondo State. How do you want to defeat Atiku, please?
So you now agree that there are regional advantages in politics? No, when we are talking about the rotation, being mayor convention. So by the same token, there are fair-minded Northerners who know that it is the turn of the South. In every contest, even the one that produced Muhammadu Buhari as candidate of the APC in Lagos, I was there. And in the minds of the party, the candidate should be from the North. But that didn't stop Southern candidates from throwing their hats. But when you throw your hat, because they know that this is where it ought to come from, those people will just be co-runners. It's the same thing. He would run, but the Nigerian state knows that the South hasn't finished its tenure.
What of Omoyele Sowore, a dark horse from nowhere?
If he's a dark horse, then he will never be seen anywhere near the front line.
Okay, so summary: Peter Obi is going to win this election.
He won the last election. He will win better this time.
Oh, he would win, and he will win better this time around. Okay, let's assume your permutation is correct. So a scenario where Peter Obi emerges president in 2027, only one man with Kwankwanso. But then you have the Senate, the House of Reps, the governors, with all of this other. How is he going to survive?
Let me tell you something. You know, much as Peter Obi has been in the public space, a lot of people still have a lot to learn from him. Mr. Peter Obi, when he was governor of Anambra State, had one sitting ABGA member in the State Assembly. Eventually, even that one crossed over to the PDP. Mr. Peter Obi survived as governor with 30 opposition lawmakers. I asked him one day how he did it, but I will not tell you the answer he gave to me.